Sorry, in the third row. Please identify yourself and ask your question.
Stephanie Kenny, retired senior foreign service and recently part of the steering committee for the Diplomatic Professional Education and Training Project. And my question goes to that. Sean, I was struck by your time frame, fixing in time. Before that, Jock Reinstein created the long economics course for FSI. Mm-hmm. The 70s, economics actually got named. No power without naming. Very important in Cones, and yet today, about 3 years ago when I was talking with Lisa Fox just before she retired, I was shocked and perplexed to learn from her that not a single person who had been taken in the economic cone that year had an economic degree or background. And given the very tight linkage between political and economic work and the world the way it has developed, I wonder if it makes sense for us to continue to be as laissez-faire about the kind of learning that we could expect people to come to service with, mm-hmm. so that we could then really add value with something that they wouldn't necessarily have, mm-hmm. beyond the basics. And I wonder what the three of you think about the proper kinds of credentials and formation, either previous to selection, yeah. or immediately after selection, that we need to be expecting of everybody, because Thanks. Everybody is involved in what you all have pretty much dedicated your lives to. Thanks.
Al, you and I both spent a fair amount of time working on the economic course and with people out there, including Lisa Fox and so on. But what's your observation on both the economic training course at FSI or other ways of training State Department economic officers or other officers? And what kind, are there certain credentials people should have to get into the econ cone?
I'll make 4 quick observations, and they don't necessarily come together with a significant message. One is that in my own career, after being told by various people never take university economic training, I did. And I think it was one of the best things for my particular career, for me, given what my focus was. It taught me some things I didn't need to know, like econometrics, but it also taught me what I considered to be defensive econometrics. I knew junk when I saw it, and I knew not to be
Treasury or the Fed start giving you this double talk. Yeah.
Second, you know, you do, and I do think that for State Department economic officers, including officers in the field, one of the things I tried to allude to in my article was that we can and we need to be able to deal with macroeconomic issues and not be cowed by, what the Fed or Treasury may say, because a lot of things, look, this isn't primarily or isn't only about QE2 or things like that anymore. It's about national budget policies, national competitiveness policies, and it's really sort of much more Main Street. It's not only Wall Street. I think Sean, on the course itself, one of the things that Sean and I and others tried very hard to do was to make this a course where people would be taught to think like economists. We didn't want to try to reproduce in Roslyn or now in Arlington some version of a Harvard or Yale economics course. We tried to have it be high standards, but focused on issues that Foreign Service officers had to deal with, and focused more on getting the thought process so that you apply. You think like an economist even in situations that you weren't instructed on in your coursework. And I think we had some success at that. And I know when I would go over and meet with people in the long econ course, years and years afterwards, I'd find out they were still working on some of the case studies that we had developed. Third, I've never been a strong advocate myself of box checking type things, whether they're boxes you have to have checked before you get into the Foreign Service or boxes you have to check in the Foreign Service before you reach promotion. There may be a place for them, but I just have tended to think that life is too messy for that. But I do think we need to probably as a service find a way to make sure that incoming officers have the sort of broad capabilities that we are looking for. I was interested, just today, I was learning something about a young Foreign Service officer who had called me up to begin preparing the briefing paper for a meeting I'm going to have with a more senior State Department official next week. Now, how many of us remember that? You know, but this person was extremely entrepreneurial. He had called up the company whose problem we are dealing with, who's based in Texas, and talked to them. He had called me up to find out more about what exactly the issue was. I sort of looked up, got a hold of his bio, and he was, it wasn't exactly an investment banking firm, but he had been involved before joining the Foreign Service in some type of real financial, entrepreneurial type of role. And I thought, it's not an economics degree, but that's an example of the type of person. You don't want everyone in the Foreign Service to have that background, but you want to have some of those types of people because they will fit in very well in the new Foreign Service. And so those are sort of random reflections, if you will, on the question of how we train and select FSOs.
Just very quickly, a different world for us, but I think to add another perspective on it, we're just in the middle of a whole new competency analysis of what kinds of people we need to do the job we have, and the nature of the challenges and opportunities for, again, companies that need a government support mechanism, not a duplicate of something you can find in the marketplace. And that's going to lead us to, I think, a different perspective of the officers we want to have coming in to the future in terms of the nature of the skill set they'll have to have. But more importantly, I think when you look at what companies are needing from embassies or from the Foreign Commercial Service, it's some mix of information, contacts, advocacy, finance, references to put people together with something they're not getting out of the marketplace. And we believe a different kind of recruitment for locally employed staffs, FSNs, would be where we need to go more than some officers. So that's something not to forget, at least for our business, that a lot of the talent that we bring on behalf of American companies is going to come from hopefully the best and the brightest of local employees if we can get them. I think we share that with other parts of the State Department that might also need to look at how we're recruiting in the future and have the locally employed staff. So I just want to put that in a competency analysis because we bring people in at the FS4 and 3 levels, a different system, and so we kind of have this way driving us more than a more formal.